All right, so this is part 2. Draft archetypes 6 through 10. Starting off with blue, red. And this is kind of a Spells Matters deck, but it's more of a get early creatures on board that you can then leverage to kind of treat as mana elves to play your Convoke spells and take advantage of, double or even triple spelling sometimes, some turns. And just play a game where you're just using all your mana, getting some tempo advantages, pressing your advantage, oftentimes with some degree of invasion, but you can also maybe go a little wider than the opponent potentially as well. So some cards that really make sense. So this actually is a deck where we would try and companion Lutri if you can. So some cards that you might potentially want 2 of or more of, like Volcanic Spite, the 3 damage to a creature, planeswalker, or battle, and then you can put a card in the bottom of your library to draw another card, or like Rouse Reinforcements, or even like Premium Champion or Ferris Dispersal. No, we're just limiting to 1, so that we can allow you to companion Lutri, which is super powerful when you look at the types of instants or sorcery spells that could potentially be copied. I mean, imagine using a Shatter the Source to deal 6 damage to 2 different targets. They're not players, but everything else are doing like double Volcanic Spite or Rouse Reinforcements or Meeting in the Mind potentially, or Dispersal. There's just a ton of stuff that can be done that's super cute, but also just potentially really powerful. And that's backed up with a reasonable curve. Again, you'll see that some things are a little higher up, but Shadow Source, Convoke, a decent finisher in the Squadron at Convoke, and then Artistic Refusal, which is played pretty well as oftentimes 2 to 4 mana counterspell with draw 2, discard 1. That starts to look like Dismiss, which is a pretty good card back then and would be now as well. But sometimes you can even get it cheaper than that. Ideally, if you can have some cards that have Vigilance, it plays a little better. This particular version doesn't have those, just to try and show off the spell category a little bit better, but there are some cards that have Vigilance that could work well with Convoke cards. So some real standouts here, I would say. This is our way to go wide. Invasion of Mercadia. You can put it down to get your Tormenting Vice, discard 1, draw 2, find the cards you need, get rid of what you maybe don't need, and you can just make tokens that you can use for tapping with Convoke or going wide. You might have other tokens that then get pumped up. All your creatures get Sombreso and Haste, which is pretty strong. Also, this is one of the better flip creatures, I believe, transform creatures. Particularly in a color pair where you're going to have multiple non-creature spells, having Prowess is pretty good, and it's a reasonable flip at just 3 in a Phyrexian blue. And then there are only, I think the only battle we have is Mercadia in this version, but there could be other battles where you're looking at using your evasion, like with your Preening Champion or Skyclave Aerialist. And then again, because this is spells heavy, it feels like a Chromho Sea Shark makes a lot of sense in the rare slot. And then obviously Lutri was our second rare. But yeah, you're just trying to play a kind of tempo-y game and taking advantage of your creatures when they can't get in for attacks to use them to generate mana for your many Convoke cards. I think this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Convoke cards. Which is not going over the top, but it's enough to say, okay, we can get some benefits from this without being in trouble if our board gets a little thinner. Some cards that I think played well in this deck. Obviously, there's the Rouse Reinforcements to put some creatures out there that you can tap and maybe push them for some damage if need be. But also trying to play decent amount of stuff at instant speed. It's nice to have some interaction, whether it's a Dispersal or a Volcanic Spite or Stoke the Flames. But also, if you don't use an interaction spell, you can draw cards if you're meeting in the mines or counter, like the Artistic Refusal. So it's nice to be able to play at instant speed and more cards at instant speed. Just, I mean, you do better when you have even more cards at instant speed usually. But because it can be a little threat light, if they've got like interaction themselves or they're kind of on the ground trying to fly over also. Some cards that can help your creatures, like the Cryptomancer to be a hexproof trait to keep something alive, or like this spell, the Shapecraft. In particular, if you have a token that can become a 4/3, and you can kind of cycle it in there to draw a card, or if you have like a incubate token you flipped, like with Isaac the Taxis. Yeah, then those are all really good options. But it's fun, tempo-y, interactive deck to play. So yeah, hopefully you can draft a deck like this and have some fun with it. So our last blue deck is blue-green, which I think will probably be one of the decks that I enjoy playing the most in the format, just because it's hopefully going to be able to take advantage of a decent number of the transform cards and just has some cool blue, like just creatures and interaction mixed in with some green, just like card advantage and kind of beef. I think another deck where Zephyr Single will do well, even if there's only, one or two battles that you want to flip, just giving your whole team flying potentially to be able to send them to the airs just to kill the opponent is big game. And then Glistening Dawn just feels like where this deck wants to be. It's transforming, it's got a great late game threat or early game, as early as potentially turn 3, they don't really probably want to play over 2 3/3s, but turn 4 on, it's reasonable to do that. And turn 3 if you have like a mana elf, for example. But then, yeah, you're looking at a lot of synergy in terms of just powerful cards that transform, which are some of the better cards in the format. Uncommon and rare, for example, and even some uncommon. And then enough interaction with like the Cosmic Hungers, for example, the Dispersal again. Where is it? I thought we had the interaction. No, might be a little lower on interaction than I thought we were. Let's go back to mana value. Yeah, we have the Cryptomancer, the Hunger, the Dispersal. Yeah, there's a potential here to probably put in one or two more interaction spells. So actually, in real time, we'll do that. I like the Connoisseur, but we think that's a little too cute. We could take that out in favor of a Tandem Takedown, which is one of the better interaction spells in this color pair. Instant, pump up 2 your creatures plus 1 plus 0, and then they bite, not fight. That's great. But yeah, you're just trying to get on board and get some evasion and just be able to interact favorably by using your mana, every turn, flipping stuff, whether it's creatures, incubate tokens. And you get some consistency with like the cyclers, 4 cycler and Timberland Ancient, Island Cycler and Tidal Terror. The land cyclers just help you hit your land drops and can be played late game as well. In particular, if you do have an Emoti, if you play either one of these, you get them to Cascade as well. And there's tons of great cards you can hit in these colors off of Cascade. So yeah, this is a deck where I think ideally you can maybe do a little bit of splish splashing if you like the Overgrown Pests, or maybe you get Invasion Zendikar and like your 4 mana slot to pick up 2 basic lands of off colors. And we'll see that in our last deck, the red-green, but you can also probably do that in this deck as well. Yeah, so that is blue-green. Now we're on to a deck that I'm not quite sure if it's going to come together, but if it does, it'll probably just mean you kill your opponent's creatures, maybe flip a battle or two, and just have a couple things on the board and finish them off that way. But it's black-red. I think, again, one of the best rares, the Wrath, that can also turn into a great creature on the backside if and when you flip it. And then Judith in particular. We're not doing much sacrifice here, but if you are sending in creatures, you can use Judith's ability to kind of either pick off other creatures on blocks or after blocks, or just, go to the face. And then, yeah, there's a lot of interaction, which is why I think this deck could potentially be okay. I don't think it's going to be, top of the format by any means, because I think the creatures are a little weak. Black's not the strongest color. And red probably can't do all the heavy lifting, as many of his creatures are going to be lightning rods for your opponent's removal. So it's probably going to try and play a small game where you're trading, one resource like a drinker, and you're making another resource that might trade with something else. You're kind of getting like a 1.5 to 2 to 1, 2 for 1. You're like flipping a prankster, and you trade with something, and they're having to sack another creature. Just little micro advantages that can add up over the duration of the game. In terms of ways to close out the opponent, it might just be whatever creature you have left, or it might be something like a Javelineer that can, go 2 to the face multiple times. Might be that you've flipped Invasion of Mercadia and you're using those tokens again. Just pump your whole team and generate more tokens. And yeah, I mean, if you need to, you can always, sack a token to your Rager to pump it up and draw a card and find more action. So yeah, there's some neat synergies. You could add a steel sack element to this deck. With the steel card being an uncommon, it feels a little unreliable to do that. And that's Furnace Rains. It is 3 mana, and when you attack with the creature, if it deals damage to a player battle, you get a treasure token. So I mean, it somewhat pays for itself, but being uncommon, it's tough to feel like you can confidently get those. And then there are a reasonable amount of sack outlets, but many of them are not the best, quite where you want to be. The Stormclaw Rager is one of the better ones. That feels a little clunky. You wouldn't be able to activate a sorcery if they were to interact with, the Rager, potentially even like during combat, after you've attacked with the creature. They're going to get the creature back, as an example. So, some ways to go wrong here, but tons of interaction, so it can play a slower game and just set his board up, try and take your board down and push through when possible. Cards to point out that have been getting some just don't seem like slam dunk to some people, like Stoke the Flames and Deadly Derision and Volcanic Spite. I think people realize those are going to be good, but I actually do think Vanquish the Weak is going to play well in this set because there are so many transform creatures, like a Harried Artisan, for example, where they put in their mana to transform it, and you just, blow them out by taking out the creature they've spent, 6 or 7 mana on. With that 3 mana, that's a great mana advantage that can play off well. And then Merciless Repurposing. It's 6 mana, but it's also instant speed, and then exile, it can be useful, but you're also going to get a body with the Incubate 3 from that. So it's got some of those Rise of Exodus from Strixhaven vibes, but being an instant is really nice to help maybe blow out tricks or make a combat a lot tougher for your opponent. And then Shadow Source. I think there'll be enough creatures to make this worthwhile, where you might be able to cast it for, like 3 or 4. And then it starts looking like a pretty good card, right? So you can also do this, end of turn or during or after blocks. So yeah, that's black-red. There may be black-blue. I'm not super jazzed about the black decks in this format before really playing much. So our last two, black-green. I feel like it has some of the better uncommons and rares. So like Glissa is probably going to be an A+ level card. Like you drop it, and if it doesn't just die immediately, it's going to just accrue so much value. We've already talked about the Wrath. A lot of the black rares are just very good. But even on the uncommons are like flip cards that are in these colors. You're talking about, a 2 for 1 with the Vat Keeper. It's a 3/3 that brings along a 2/2 or potentially, a 4/4 if you use that. The ability 5 mana to flip it. Invasion of Lorn's one of the more powerful uh, battle, so it does take 5 to flip, but it does flip into a good creature also. But you're talking about more removal, and then the Thalad's a 2 or 3 for 1, comes down, and then you flip it, you get a sapling, it dies, you get a sapling. Those are all good. And even the Herbology Instructor, good blocker early, gets some life gain, and then can kill something when it flips on 6 or 7 mana. So I think all those are some of the top probably 15 to 20 uncommons in the set. And then you add in other strong uncommons like Tangled Skyline to play a longer game, gain some life, get a 5/5, instant speed interaction with takedown, good early game with a 3/3 and 2, and then good interaction where you can convoke out a Collective Nightmare for potentially 0 mana to either like put a combat in your favor or take out a creature when it's trying to transform, or just end the turn to open up better attacks. Yeah, beyond that, you're just trying to, find the cards, like Overgrown Pest, for example, or Stay Alive with like Ichor Drinker to maybe trade off and make another 2/2 that can trade off. You're just trying to play a reasonable curve and try and get to some of your more powerful cards. That being said, you're not going to probably win a quick game unless your opponent really stumbles on mana here. But I mean, you have a plan to enact with getting value, 2 for 1s, and trying to just grind the opponent out. Like mini decks are probably going to be trying to do in this format. And then last, and I think probably one of the most fun archetypes is going to be red-green. And we'll play battles because in this example we're splashing an Invasion of Laurelin, which I think you can do off of a Surveyor, a Pest, an Invasion of Zendikar to get 2 basic lands, as well as an Invasion of Moag, which I feel like is going to help you just get your board up to flip another battle or just go face. And then there are 5 battles that it might be 1 or 2 too many, but I think the red-green battle actually is pretty good for ramping you from 2 to 4. We'll look at the curve again and see. There's a lot of 4-drops you just love to play a turn early, especially if you're on the play. And that's some card selection with the rummaging. And then my vote for probably on the uncommon battles, probably top 2 or 3 battles in Invasion Mercado, which we've talked about a couple times. But also you're setting up with like solid 2 and 3 drops. This is sooner to drop, and then it has haste, so it can attack on turn 3. And then again, haste with your rampaging and Geoderm. Now it doesn't have to attack for the +1/+1 or at counter, but if you got all these battles, you're looking to set your team up to be in a great spot. And then for curve considerations, the cards that there's 2 of here are Thrashing Frontliner to help you flip your battles, and then if you're getting encounters on stuff, to be a trample that's bigger than a 2/2. And Volcanic Spite to kind of clear the way. And then some creatures that you want to back up onto, like the War Story, you're very happy to back up onto that with a Chomping Kavu, make it tougher to block. A Heal Slasher, giving it first strike, making it tougher to block. Or a Doomscar Warrior that we've talked about before, giving it trample +1/+1 and an ability to find cards off the top of your deck. And then some notes here. I do like Port and Tracker is another way to go from 2 to 4. You have your 3 lands, you tap 1, untap it, and you have 4 mana on turn 4 to put out one of these hasters potentially, or a good Saga to set you up to go from 4 to 6 potentially. And then also it can take down battles slowly, remove a counter, or play defensive to make it tough for your opponent to flip battles. And the Javelineer that can go face or take out battles to flip them. I think those will play well in this type of deck in particular, where you're just trying to get on board and try and just have the advantage, continue to press it and grow your board. And yeah, you get a little bit of damage, but you get some pretty reasonable backsides on these cards, like a 3/3 that adds counter each turn is going to add up. A 4/4 that also ramps you and can be a reasonable attacker is good. We already talked about Mercadia and how that's just gameplay in and of itself. And then a reasonable card for a red-green Invasion of Urgamon, where you just go find another battle, or Lord, which is just equal to your lands. So I think this will be fun to play, and I think the format will allow it within reason. You can't, just jam every battle in there. You have to have ways to attack them, and they have to have good enough front and back sides to be worthwhile actually having in there. But I think this is possible because of the invasion of Zendikar, plus like Surveyor at uncommon and common respectively, to have one of a single land, maybe some dual lands, can make it happen. So yeah, if you found this interesting, or if you have some different thoughts on how you'd build these decks, within the confines of 2 rares, no duplicates, 8 uncommons, no duplicates, and then the rest commons, trying to not have more than 2 of any common, and ideally, only 2 or 3 commons that you do have 2 of. I'm trying to make it more realistic. Then yeah, please just put a comment and we can chat about it. Otherwise, thanks so much for your time, and yeah, I'll see you out in the draft queues.